Hey guys, I'm Law, and welcome back. This is What If Deku was Quirkless and went to Shiketsu High, Part 2. Anyways, let's begin. As Deku was standing in front of Shiketsu's entrance, he looked towards the building of Shiketsu High, the second most prestigious hero school of all of Japan, and thought to himself that this place looked more like a college than an actual high school. The same thing he thought when he looked at the UA building. Deku took in 2 deep breaths, then smiled, and started walking towards the building with other students, who seemed to also be taking the recommendation test. As Deku was inside the building, the teacher instructing the recommendation test told all the students the instructions of the test, which consisted of a written test and a test of combat, where 2 students would fight each other. The written test would begin, and Deku would ace the written test with ease, as once the test was finished, the teacher announced in the next 15 minutes the combat test would begin. Izuku saw who he would be fighting, but before he can stretch his body, he was heading towards the bathroom. He turned to a corner and bumped into someone who was holding a phone, which dropped from the person's hand. He reacted quickly and caught the phone that was inches away from the ground. He looked at the person to give the phone back. He noticed it was a girl, an attractive girl at that, with blonde hair. "OMG, I am so sorry for bumping into you," the blonde-haired girl said. "It's no problem," Deku said as he handed the phone back. 5 seconds of awkward silence, Deku finally spoke. "So, you also taking the recommendation test?" "Oh no, I totally passed the entrance exam. I'm just here to support a friend on the combat test," the girl said. "Then I guess I'll see you in the hero course after I pass. By the way, I'm Izuku Midoriya," Deku said with the warmest smile. "Kami Utsushimi," the girl responded with a smile of her own, and left telling Deku goodbye. Deku made his way to the bathroom, as once he was done with his business, he got into his green tracksuit with his hair tied and began to do some stretches while also doing some shadow boxing. Deku was the 4th person to fight against his opponent, which gave him plenty of time to warm up. It was Deku's turn, where both him and his opponent would enter opposite sides facing each other in an indoor arena surrounded by seats, as there were some people sitting on them, mostly teachers and some other students. Both Deku and his opponent would be standing 15 feet away from each other. As the teacher would say begin, both of them would start. Deku's opponent was a boy the same age as him with a quirk that allowed him to turn his hands into giant stone hands. He tried punching Deku multiple times, but Deku kept dodging with ease, not breaking a sweat. And once Deku saw an opening, he punched the boy in the solar plexus, not too hard, as he didn't want to give internal damage to the boy. Deku's opponent then winced in pain, holding his stomach, as Deku would then be declared the winner. The other matches would go on, but Deku would only stay to watch one, as then he would leave the school. It was Saturday afternoon, and Deku would be sitting on the couch until Inko came into the living room with an excited look on her face that Deku got a letter from Shiketsu High. Deku took the letter and went to his room to open it, which read, "Congratulations, Izuku Midoriya, for scoring the highest marks on the recommendation test. You have been put in the hero course of Class 1A. We are expecting great things from you, Izuku Midoriya, etc., etc." As Deku finished reading the letter, he went to Inko to tell her the good news, to which, after Inko heard this, she gave Deku a big hug, and Deku gave her a hug back, as he was now a student of Shiketsu High. A couple of days later, Deku would have gotten all the things he needed for his first day at Shiketsu High, such as a uniform, textbooks, etc. Today was the day Deku would be in his Shiketsu uniform, holding his backpack. As he was about to leave from his door, his mom would say, "Have fun at your first day of school, Izuku." Deku nodded, as then he left the house. 20 minutes later, he arrived at the entrance of Shiketsu High. He walked towards the school, as when he got inside, he looked to find the class he was assigned to. He then went upstairs, and to his surprise, he saw a familiar blonde girl in the hallway talking to a purple-haired boy. "Kami?" Both the boy and girl turned around and noticed Izuku. Izuku went further to greet them. The boy introduced himself as Seiji Shishikura. This was also the friend Kami mentioned in the recommendation test. "I remember you. You made quick work of that guy in the recommendation test," Seiji said. Deku thanked him, and the three of them began talking and walking ahead to look for their class. They eventually made it to the class and they all sat beside each other. By the way, Zuko, what is your quirk? Kami asked. Actually, I'm quirkless, Deku answered. Both Seiji and Kami would have a look of disbelief, and then Deku would explain his backstory on how he became this strong through training. Both Kami and Seiji would look at Deku in a new light and have a complete respect for the guy. A few seconds later, another student would come in with an enthusiastic smile on his face, and he would notice Zuko and start talking to him, because he saw Zuko's fight and how easily he handled the guy. The student would introduce himself as Inasa Yorashi, and Deku was at first weirded out by him, but soon realized he was just very passionate about things that he did. Inasa would sit behind Deku, as all other students would enter the class, and soon their homeroom teacher, the pro hero gang Orca, would appear and tell the students to settle down. Class would begin, and the majority of the school days would be regular classes for the first half of the day, and hero classes for the second half of the day. Oh, plus, Izuku, Kami, Seiji, and Inasa would also become pretty good friends. They would talk about different things together, such as their quirks and why they wanted to become pro heroes. Inasa would also explain to Deku the reason why he's in Shiketsu instead of UA, and what he also thinks about people like Endeavor and his son. Deku would hear this and somewhat understand where Inasa was coming from. USJ incident wouldn't also happen, as Shigaraki would try to play his card smart when attacking All Might. It's been 2 weeks since Deku entered Shiketsu, as Gang Orca would enter the class and would announce to the students that they would be doing a hero exercise, where students would be put into 2 groups and would be tasked to save a bunch of dummies, aka pretend civilians, from these kind of environments. Basically what the USJ would have been if the villains didn't attack. It would also be the day they would get their hero costumes and learn how to move in them. All students would get excited as soon as the first class was over. Gang Orca would call out the pairs, and Deku would be paired with Seiji, as their location would be a city that had fires. They all went to the changing rooms to get their hero costumes. As Deku was taking off his clothes, some of the boys, including Inasa and Seiji, noticed that he wore a weighted vest and had weights around his arms and legs. While wearing weights when not training, such dedication, Inasa said with gleam in his eyes. Yeah, how much do they weigh anyways? Seiji chimed in. The vest 200 pounds and the rest 100 pounds, Deku said with a sheepish smile. Both Inasa, Seiji, and the other boys that heard would have their jaws drop to the floor after hearing him say that so casually. They all got into their hero costumes, and Deku's costume would be a black, lightweight bulletproof suit with green designs, a hood with green rabbit eyes, a black utility belt with 2 Eskimo sticks that produced high volts of electricity at his sides, some pockets at his sides, and a metal plate for his mouth, with a small black katana tied behind his back. The suit would look very similar to the one Deku would be wearing in the My Hero Academia Heroes Mission movie. Once all the boys were done changing, they waited at the hall where all the girls would arrive with their hero costumes on. Kami went to Deku, Seiji, and Inasa, and would compliment Seiji's and Inasa's costumes. She then got to Deku and said, "Whoa Deku, you look amazing in that, although you seem more like an assassin than an actual hero." Deku would smile at that, as once they got a look at Kami's costume, Deku couldn't help but blush, thinking she looked really good in her costume. Gang Orca would appear and tell them which room their location was in, as before they could enter they would be given a map, memorize it for 5 minutes, and then proceed to do the exercise. Pairs would enter the room, and both students and Gang Orca would watch from the TV screens. It was Deku and Seiji's turn, as they would enter the room and be met with intense heat, and see some buildings set on fire, with some rubble on the ground, as both then proceeded to go further to look for the dummies and save them. They found it difficult at first, but Seiji's quirk was versatile in that they can carry the dummies with the floating forms of Seiji's flesh. And Deku was fast and had good jumping to find the dummies and carry them to safety. Both of them worked well together, despite the fact that the heat was making them more tired, and the fire was making some places almost impossible to get to unscathed. The time was up and both of them got good scores on the exercise. They then watched the other students do their exercise, and then Kami and Inasa would walk up to them, both of them being soaking wet, as their environment was with heavy rain with the aftermath of an earthquake. Both of them got a good score. However, if you actually looked at the video, it seemed that Inasa was doing 70% of the work, as Kami's illusions weren't really necessary in the exercise they were doing. The hero exercise was over, and then they would then resume their regular classes. It was the next day, and Gang Orca would announce that 4 students from this class would take part in UA's sports festival, as the students were to vote which of these 4 students would be. The 4 students would be Kami, Inasa, Seiji, and Deku. Gang Orca would tell them the sports festival will be held in 2 weeks, so they have some time to prepare. Class would then begin as normal, as once the day was over, Deku would ask if they wanted to do some training, to which they all kindly agreed. They got permission to use the training ground in the school, and would begin to train. Deku would mostly focus his attention to Kami, as he thought that Kami did have some knowledge on how to defend herself, but it wasn't good enough when facing stronger opponents. They do this for about 2 hours and also trained their quirks, as then they would go home. They would repeat this for the next 2 weeks, except for weekends where they would just hang out together. It was the day of the sports festival, and the 2 students would arrive at the UA entrance, with Gang Orca to be greeted by Principal Nezu and All Might. Both Nezu and All Might noticed Izuku and be interested to see what the boy was capable of, if he's being allowed to participate with these other quirk users. They would then be led to them to the changing rooms, where they would change into their own Shiketsu PE uniforms, which would be black shorts with black t-shirt with red stripes on the side. Deku, Inasa, and Seiji would be changing with the other students of UA, most of them being Class 1A, until they heard a loud voice, "Deku!" They turned around to see Bakugo marching towards Deku and grab his shirt, then started questioning Deku why he was here and how he got into Shiketsu with his usual angry tone. Deku took Bakugo's hand away from him, and would respond that he was here to participate in the sports festival. As to why he was in Shiketsu, that's a long story, Deku would say. Bakugo was about to yell something else until Ida came in between them, which Bakugo, not wanting to deal with him, left, making Ida apologize to the Shiketsu students. Inasa and Seiji would then think to themselves that must be Bakugo, when Deku once explained his backstory to them, which would make them dislike him, especially Seiji. All the students would finish changing and make their way to the arena, where President Mike would commentate on the festival. Bakugo would tell everyone that he would win, and Midnight would also announce the first challenge would be the obstacle course. All the students would make their way to the door of the obstacle course, and President Mike would tell them to begin. Deku would wait a while as he noticed the door was too narrow for all the students to easily pass through. After a few seconds of waiting, he ran as fast as he could, and then started jumping from wall to wall to eventually meet the exit to see some robots being frozen, and some other robots charging towards him, and other students. Deku would destroy the robots with his punches and kicks, and would also begin to continue running, clearing different challenges in the obstacle course with his speed and agility. He would come in third, with Inasa second, Todoroki first, and Bakugo fourth. Midnight would then announce the next event, which would be a cavalry battle, and Todoroki would be given a 10 million point headband, as most of the teams would go as in canon. However, Deku, Inasa, Seiji, and Kami would also form a team, with Deku holding the headband. They would form a strategy, with Inasa blowing away the enemies, Seiji defending against the attacks, and Kami creating illusions to distract enemies. They would use this opportunity to steal other headbands from weaker teams. Their plan was to play passively. Majority of the students would go after Todoroki, who seemed to be doing pretty well against the other students. Bakugo would be aggressive as possible, trying to steal Todoroki's headband, but he would fail as the timer for the cavalry battle would be up, and Todoroki's team would be placed first, with Deku's team being placed second. Once the cavalry battle was over, the students would then be allowed to eat lunch before the next battle before the next battle would begin, as once they were finished their food, they would make their way to the arena. At midnight would announce the last event, which would be a versus battle between two students. The first battle would begin, and it would be Deku versus Shinso. In this fight, Deku wouldn't be warned by Ojiro and Shinso about Shinso's ability, so Deku would go into the battle not knowing what to expect. Private seating for the teachers, Gang Orca would be sitting beside All Might. They would be talking to each other, which would then lead to Gang Orca asking that Deku applied to UA, but he wasn't allowed in the hero course. All Might would explain what would happen between the teachers and Nezu, to which Gang Orca would then mildly laugh and tell All Might that they let go of a rare gem of a hero. All Might's interest would peak and would start to watch the battle between Deku and Shinso. As the two students were facing each other, Shinso would begin to mock Deku, saying it must be nice having a powerful quirk. Deku wouldn't really pay attention to that, and would go into a fighting stance until Shinso then started insulting his friends from Shiketsu. Deku, being pissed, would then send out some of his bloodlust to make Shinso back down, but unfortunately for Deku, he accidentally spoke, which Shinso took advantage of, and told Deku to walk out of the arena. Deku then started slowly walking out of the arena, but as he was a few meters away from the boundary line, blood started coming from his mouth, as the audience would be confused as to what just happened. Deku would turn around to Shinso to see that Deku bit his tongue and his lip to get out of the trance with the little control he had left. Shinso would begin to panic and say more insults to Deku to try to get him to talk, but Deku wouldn't, and would start charging towards Shinso, punching him in the stomach, sending him flying out of the boundary lines. The audience would then erupt into cheers, with President Mike announcing Izuku the winner. But before Izuku could leave, he went up to Shinso. "Hey, your name was Shinso, right? I just wanted to say that 1, I don't have a quirk, and 2, look around you, Shinso. You think everyone else here didn't work hard to get this far just because they have a powerful quirk?" Shinso would then realize his mistakes and internally thank Izuku for inspiring him to train harder to be a better hero. Izuku would then go to Recovery Girl to get his wounds healed, as the other matches would then proceed. And that's it for this video. Anyways, I hope you enjoy. By the way, tell me how's the audio in the comments. Like, I've been trying to edit the audio, and if damn, this is why I hate unscripted videos. Anyways, just tell me how the audio is. Also, maybe you guys can like put some comments of some what if ideas. I'm thinking of what if Deku was betrayed. I mean, I know it's not original, but like I wanted to try my own spin of it. Yeah, what if Deku was cheated and betrayed? There's also this one specific what if that I really want to do. However, I won't tell you what it is. I'll give you a hint, but I really want to. No, I won't give you a hint. But I really want to do that what if. I really think this what if is gonna be. As a matter of fact, like that specific one what if idea is the reason why I started what if. So yeah. Anyways, I think I've been rambling on for too long, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.